Hello, hello. Welcome, please come in. We resume our heavy equip load journey this week in Dark Souls 2. Why no Dark Souls 1? Because views, basically. So I'm only doing 3 Souls games in this series, and my patrons voted to include Dark Souls 2, which is very nice of them. Spawn in and get into character creation. First obstacle is that this game makes it very difficult to give Strongker trademark green skin. I guess that'll do. Next problem is that no classes in this game actually start with heavy equip load. So I'll have to find some random equipment so I can maintain the challenge. Until I'm in heavy equip load, I'm just gonna try to not roll at all. First stop is into the Giant's Forest, where I get momentarily distracted and fall to my death. But that's fine. It means the Emerald Herald will actually talk to me and I can upgrade my flask. I chose the class that looked like it had the highest equip load to start with, but I may have made a bit of a mistake, because my starting weapon is a broken straight sword, which is pretty awful. Good thing the next 2 weapons I find to equip are also broken straight swords. Now I have a whole collection, just in time for the first to start breaking. And I'm dead. I can't wait for this challenge to actually get started, so hopefully this game doesn't end up sucking. Now that I've gotten some souls, I can head back to the shop to buy a nice shield, and I'm still not over 70%? Okay. Next up, let's grab my first actually good weapon. After I die a few times, this run is not starting off super great. My ability to deal damage and block attacks is really bad. I'm just gonna run for it. I do die, but I managed to pick up the fire longsword in this chest. It's not a great weapon for me, since I won't really be boosting my faith or intelligence, but it's a pretty good weapon for the early game as the bonus fire damage is very nice. It also helps me unlock the shortcut. And equipping random swords in all my empty weapon slots means I'm finally in heavy equip load. Next up, I'm going to try to fight the Pursuer early. It goes honestly better than I expected. I actually get him down to almost half, but not being able to roll quickly while also not having enough stamina to block, and having no adaptability, yeah, I'll just have to fight him at the normal location. Time for the first real boss, the last giant. On one hand, I can't really block any of the boss's attacks. On the other hand, blocking and evasion aren't super essential in this fight. You can more or less just strafe around his ankles. And at the end, he just falls forward, letting me get a bunch of free attacks in. Then I fall and die and nearly lose all my souls. But I do get the regen ring. Little health regens will be helpful for now for elemental damage that breaks through my shield's guard. Back in Majula, I pop over to the shop and buy the Royal Armor. This means I get to be at heavy equip load without having my weapon slots full of garbage. And to the Herald to buff my strength. I'll need it if I'm going to equip the biggest shields. Into the Pursuer fight proper, and I get to see the first big benefit heavy armor has over demon souls. Poise. This better armor lets me actually take a hit from the Pursuer without my action being interrupted. It's only one, but that can make a huge difference when that action is something important, like healing. And while my damage isn't great, and I still can't really block attacks effectively, that increased poise means I can tank through a lot of attacks with life gems and win the fight. Okay, that's probably the most hits I've ever taken in that fight. Probably ever. But I survived. Did they make armor good in TS2? Back in Majula, I buy the Tower Great Shield, my first Great Shield. Then get my strength up to 20 to wield it, and buff up my health. The Great Shield doesn't have perfect physical block, but it is still a tower shield, which can massively help to block attacks. And get a level in my Fire Longsword. I'm gonna need this to last for a bit. Now that I'm in a much better position, time to hop back into the Forest of Giants to get the mansion key from this boy. That lets me access the basement to pick up another Estus Flask shard and a soul vessel, just in case I decide to respec my character later. Then through this Pharaoh store to get the Chloranthy ring and a Titanite slab. I have a bunch of options on where to go next, but let's check out Hyde's Tower. I haven't dealt with the Dragon Rider yet, but that can be a pretty beefy amount of souls. My brand new tower shield is quite effective here. It may not block all damage, but it blocks a lot, and keeps me from getting knocked back at all. With those souls, I can put a few more levels into my Fire Longsword, then buff up my vigor and endurance a bit. My shield is pretty good, but I definitely need more stamina. Time to start exploring the Lost Bastille. I try to fight the Pursuer, but these stupid dogs get in the way. Second attempt, I go the other way and kill the dogs first. Then the Pursuer, did his sword just bounce off my shield? That's amazing. Are shields actually good in this game? That would be a refreshing change. As usual, the barrel here doesn't really want to behave. Come to think of it, how do you access this blacksmith normally? Does that door have a key? Light the lantern and it's time to access Better Blacksmith, which gets my longsword up to +6. Again, this weapon is temporary, but I want it to be as strong as it can get for now. Back to Hyde's Tower of Flame, then back through this area, and it's down to No Man's Wharf. Because I need, or at least want, the torch here, I won't have a shield for most of this area, but that's fine, my damage is actually pretty good. I just need to make sure to maintain my spacing. Ring the bell to summon the ship, and then unlock the shortcut. Path to the boss is clear, and I should probably rest, but oh god! Alright, into the fight it is. And Flexile Sentry is quite easy as always. My damage is pretty good, and my tower shield is very much capable of blocking all of its attacks. Back to Majula to burn some bone dust and put some points in strength and endurance. I'm now on the other side of the Bastille, where I get into a fight with another pursuer, but this time lose because of the dogs and extra archers. I don't normally fight this pursuer because he relies on these adds, but why not? Shields can block most things. And the combination of my shield being able to bounce attacks and my armor giving me enough poise means this is not especially challenging. And a chest for another Estus Flask shard. Taking this elevator gets me to this back area where I can unpetrify Strayed, which means I can start trading souls for boss weapons. But I don't have the stats for the stuff I want, so for now it's back to the other side of Lost Bastille to run through like a crazy person and into the Ruined Sentinel fight. My damage is very good and I can effectively block all of their attacks. Once I reach phase 2 and have to contend with 2 sentinels, it does get trickier, but not that much trickier. It could have been, if my damage had been lower, but this sword is doing a lot of work here, which I appreciate. Back to Majula, and I buff up my strength to 40. I need some more souls, so it's time to do another optional pursuer fight. And yeah, the pursuers have not gotten any stronger than I have, so the fight is easy. And circle all the way around, and it's back to Strayed Cell, where I pick up the Dragon Rider Shield. This is basically a straight upgrade to my existing shield and gives 100 physical block and slightly better stability. I then try to fight the Flexile Sentry down here, but it respawns and dealing with it is more trouble than it's worth. Light some torches and it's time for the first great soul boss, Lost Sinner. Lost Sinner is fast and fairly aggressive, but also doesn't have any attacks that can bypass my big shield. And my damage is also nothing to scoff at. She goes down after a minute or two. Back to Strayed Cell to pick up the Pursuer's Greatsword, because I want a big sword. And Demon Souls may have had the Claymore, but that's nothing next to the biggest sword, which is actually a bit heavy for me to equip yet, but I'll get to use it later. Next up on the menu is the Huntsman's Copse. Alright, Forlorn, you gotta try and take me out this time? I have a shield. Take that! Ooh, another Sublime Bone Dust. And then slow murder past these guys. I could run, but not being able to roll would make that a bit more complicated. Future me does prove to be a bit of a problem, and even manages to push me off the bridge, though that's not what you want. Chariot time, because again, I refuse to let this boss live. That does not mean I beat the boss on the first try, because the first phase can be a bit obnoxious. Back into the fight, this time with a bit more caution, and I die again, because the hitboxes on this boss can be a bit of a nonsense fest. Third time's the charm, and yeah, actually it is. One big benefit of shields is the ability to block a lot of attacks, which is very useful in a fight where skeletons try to corner you in alcoves. And once the summoners are dead, the chariot finishes my work for me. Throw down the gate to crash the chariot, and it's horse fight time, which is as easy as ever. This fight is only really difficult in the first half. Actually fighting the horse fairly is quite easy. Time to spend all those souls on vitality. I need this to boost my equip load so that I can actually equip some even bigger weapons. And it works. Big sword. Now I can head back to the Huntsman's Copse to progress. And I may have a bit of an issue, because the Pursuer Greatsword attack is an overhead swing, which, fine, no issue, except... yeah, I'm actually a little unclear how to properly aim attacks with this. You'd think you would attack, towards the enemy you have locked onto, and no, that is in fact not how attacking works in this game. Which is mostly fine with fast weapons that slash. It is less great with a chonky weapon that just loves to attack in the direction I was strafing, and not the direction of the enemy I am actually fighting. And I could switch back to the fire longsword, but look at the damage. It's so good. I do briefly try out the Chariot Lance, which also deals big damage, but it has the same problem. Estus Flask Shard obtained and Path to the Skeleton Lords cleared, time for a boss. This boss is usually quite easy, you just have to make sure to not get swarmed by the random skeleton ads. The real issue that I run into is that aiming the Pursuer Greatsword to actually hit things in such a chaotic fight is basically impossible. I give up, I'm switching back to the Fire Longsword. It's not as big or chunky, but it has the added advantage of being able to actually hit things, which it turns out is actually a requirement for a weapon to be usable. Back to Majula to get some levels. I need to stay over 70% equip load, but with the weapons and armor I want to use in this playthrough, that will not be an issue. Okay, ma'am, that was very rude. Other than that, the path through the Poison Land is pretty easy, mostly because you can skip all the optional stuff, and it's Covetous Demon. He did actually get me with a double roll. Wish I could say anything else interesting about this fight, but sadly I cannot. Into the windmill portion of Poison Land, and I briefly try out the Bone Scythe from the Rotten, but I don't think this is going to be the weapon for me. The guard by the burnable windmill is really inattentive, huh? Then to the secret bonfire, and then nearly died trying to get into Mitha's arena. Mitha has some pretty strong spells, but they can be partially blocked or strafed. She also takes pretty big damage from every hit. This fight is rarely actually difficult anyway, and it's definitely not difficult when I can so easily take out all of her HP. And then it's time for Iron Keep, one of the worst areas of the game. I decide to try giving the Pursuer's Greatsword another try against the random red-eyed invaders, and I kind of regret doing that, because the damage is very good, but accuracy is bad. And then I die to some weebs. Ugh. At least both invaders went down without too much issue. The knights taking 3 hits is not ideal though. I mean, I can also block their attacks, which is a boon, until I fall in lava. Someday this will be easy. Someday, I mean, I guess it kind of is with blocking and the drop strats. Then into the Smelter Demon, and I find the real problem. My shield does okay work against its sword in Phase 1, but the fire that gets added in Phase 2 can get past my otherwise strong defenses. And blocking doesn't do anything against the passive fire damage the Smelter Demon emanates. Sir, are you okay? Just gonna stand there? Okay. And then I get invaded, because of course a Forlorn can spawn here. Back into the Smelter Demon, and the fight goes basically the same way as before. That passive fire damage just eats away at my health. And while I can buff the sword with Aromatic Ooze, it's not enough to outpace the Smelter Demon's damage. My strength is already at 40, and I can't upgrade the sword without Petrified Dragon Bones, which I can't really access at this point. And then into some lava. So new plan, I'm just not going to fight the Smelter Demon, because it's actually fully optional. I usually fight it because getting through this area is more difficult than the boss itself, and beating it unlocks a bonfire halfway through, but I honestly think that would take longer than just rushing through the area. I usually just rush the second half of the Iron Keep anyway, and I have a shield for added defense. And yeah, it turns out that's way easier. Other than getting headshot by this random archer, nothing really interesting happens, and I'm at the second bonfire. I can turn off the flames, and it's Iron King time. The old Iron King fight goes basically the same as always. It does take a bit longer than I'm used to because I don't have any ranged attacks, and I can't block the big fist attacks, but this fight has always been more about spectacle than substance. Okay, time for a new path. Start by unpetrifying Rosabeth so I can give her some armor and send her back to Majula. I won't ever be buying anything from her, I just need to get her out of the way so I can trigger the switch and reach the Shaded Woods. The foggy section is less difficult than other runs because I actually have a weapon, which makes dealing with the smoky phantoms way easier to deal with. In here, I can pick up the Chloranthy Ring +1, which is always nice, then reach the shop where this held sells the regular greatsword. This sword is bigger than the Pursuer's version, and most importantly, has a wide swing as its basic attack. I think this is going to be great. Even unupgraded, this chunky beast is dealing quite good damage. Hop into a pit and free Ornifex. She sells boss weapons later that I will never use because big sword. Brief trip back to Majula to upgrade my big sword. I have enough materials already to get it up to a +7. Oh, I'm very excited to see how this goes. Time to try it out against the next boss, Najka. And yeah, that's a lot of damage, combined with actually hitting my target. I kill Najka very quickly and very easily. I'm feeling pretty good about my big sword future. Time to skip through the Doors of Pharos. I know there is a boss here, but it's fully optional and I don't care about it. I have enough grudges in DS2, I don't need to add any more by dying to an optional boss. A pretty uneventful run through the next area gets me to the Prowling Magus. And I looked away to write that last sentence, and the boss had already died. Big sword deals big damage. And that big damage being in a wide arc is just a bonus against groups of enemies like this. Brief fight against Red Phantom Guthrie, who is not immune to big swings. And that unlocks Ornifex. She also makes boss weapons here, but honestly is so far away from a bonfire, I'm simply never going to come back here. What could ever be better than Big Sword? Drop through some spiderwebs and it's time for the biggest spider of all. This fight isn't normally too bad, but I immediately get webbed, and then all I can do is shuffle my little feet. Shockingly, this does not work out, and I die. Time to try again. This attempt is a bit more of a proper attempt, and I'm initially a bit concerned as the big swings have trouble hitting her head. However, that's a skill issue, and I can actually just bait out her big laser, run to the other head, and hit her with a side swipe. That is Freya down. Only one more big soul to go. Back to Majula, where it's time to buy some ladders. I'd normally just drop down the well, but fall damage is based on equip weight, which means dropping down would probably kill me. Or come very close, it turns out, because that's the wrong ladder. Even the right ladder leads to some pretty spicy drops. Some more bone dust down here, and it's into the gutter. There is a quick route through here, but I actually keep messing it up. First by falling through here. And did I mention drop damage increases with equip load? Because it does. It definitely does. Oh hey, I forgot that this bonfire was here. I should probably remember this is here for future runs. Of course, as soon as I get the bonfire, I don't end up needing it. That's very me. Time for probably the highest nonsense per foot area of the game. It's not the worst area in the game, because it's honestly a very short area, but for how short it is, it's pretty nonsense. Much as I'd love to just run through here, that often gets me killed with normal roll speed. So I take it slow past the first few enemies, then run. And the Rotten, an easy boss that is actually gonna be a bit of a problem. It has a grab move, which is the worst news for me. It also has an explosion, which can get through my otherwise untouchable defense. It also just hits really hard, so stamina can quickly become an issue. It gets a bit close when I roll into some fire, but I do win on the first attempt. Hi Aldia. Bye Aldia. That's all 4 Great Souls down. I can now head to Dranglake Castle. But first, I have a little vendetta to settle. You didn't think I'd let you off the hook that easy, did you, Smelter Demon? Okay, well that was supposed to be my triumphant return, and it wasn't quite that. Oh, I actually have enough chunks in a slab to upgrade my greatsword to +10. Let's do that real quick. Back to the Iron Keep. The extra damage is definitely nice, because Smelter Demon still deals good damage. I do still die though, mostly because it seems like his overhead slam can't be blocked. And it lets out a little flame shockwave, which is not great. Again, because I'm not letting this end without Smelter dead. But first, I have a lot of souls. I'm going to pick those up, bone out, and upgrade my armor. This will boost my defenses and hopefully give me the little edge I need to finish this fight. Time to hop back in, this time with more defense. And I remember to use an aromatic ooze. Between those 2 buffs, I can finally put this boss to rest. Okay, well that took way too long. I'm gonna head back down and take out another pursuer to make myself feel better. I mean, its attacks mostly just bounce off my big shield, so I'm not especially concerned. This also gives me the better Ring of Blades, which is always nice. Beating the Smelter Demon means I can buy its armor, which is very big, very heavy, and has very high defenses. Getting my stats up high enough that I can actually equip this without being close to overloaded is my new goal for the rest of this run. Time to head through the Shrine of Winter to reach Drang Lake. At this point, my weapon attacks are very strong, which is what I want from a weapon this chunky and this slow. Yes, past me, the particle effects are very pretty. Oh hi buddy, I'm gonna need you to calm yourself. Thank you. Time for next boss, Dragon Riders. Every single attack takes off huge chunks of their health, and while managing their aggressive attacks could be rough, I have a familiar heavy shield. Wow, I knew the Archer Rider was a lot less durable, but I don't think I ever realized he was that less durable. When the Archer goes down, it's back to a 1v1, which the Dragon Rider has no chance of winning. Then back to Majula to get more vitality and burn some bone dust. Oh hey buddy, good to see you again. Jokes aside, why is there another 2-headed horse here? Were they on sale? Whatever. Time for the next boss, Mirror Knight. and this boss can be a bit tricky, mostly because he has a shield that passively blocks attacks. And despite my big shield and decent endurance, he can cut right through my defenses. Okay, let's try this again. His shield being on the left side is really bad, as my swipes just bounce off. He does leave himself open when he summons help, so I can get some good partial hits in. And then it becomes very obvious that I can't be blocking attacks in this fight. I need to actually use my very slow rolls. Combined with some good timing to avoid pointlessly blocking the mirror shield, Mirror Knight goes down on the second attempt. Ornifex, why does this shield not have 100% physical block? I just hit this with the biggest sword that has ever existed, and I can say with confidence that it definitely does. Fine, that makes this trash. Next up is the Shrine of Amana, my favorite part of any DS2 playthrough. Except it's actually not that bad when you have a big shield and big sword. Turns out 100% physical block, a sweeping attack, and enough damage to two-shot most enemies in this area makes it a lot less hostile. I did learn that the special magic reflecting quality of the mirror shield only actually works on its special L2 attack, which means if you're good at parrying, you can time the attack to knock back the soul arrow in a random direction, which is so comically useless. I can't actually believe it works this way. I make it through the rest of the area without incident. I don't even die once. And that's really all I need to know to say that shields are, in fact, not well balanced in this game. Seriously, they really amped up the effectiveness of heavy shields. Other than grabbing me once, which I honestly forgot this boss even had a grab move, the Demon of Song itself is not an interesting fight. Time for the catacombs, and ignore Emo Boy to light this place up. Red Phantoms have opinions about me doing that, but I have Big Sword. These very big boys with big shields can drop this big shield. Sadly, they do not. I don't even know if they are better than my current shield, but it would have been nice to know. Juke around the enemies, and it's Velstadt time. His attacks aren't particularly quick, but his weapon is pretty beefy. It's not beefy enough to get through my shields, though. It does take out a decent chunk of stamina per hit, particularly when he's buffed in phase 2 of the fight. But some good spacing and a few aromatic oozes to boost my damage is enough to beat the boss. King's Ring in hand, I can head back to Majula. Let's put some more points in Vitality, just to really boost my equip load for my heavy equipment, and some points in Adaptability. Pretty sure I'm gonna need a bit of rolling for a few fights in the future, and having slightly more agility should be quite nice. Now I can head into Aldia's Keep. Use a Fragrant Branch on this boy, and just run straight to the end of the area. I don't actually know what all items are in this area, I also don't care. Time for what could be charitably described as a boss, the Guardian Dragon. And if you think this fight was going to be interesting, I would be curious to know why. The Dragon area beyond has nothing I want and is fully skippable, so that's nice. The Dragon Trials here often weirdly give me issues. They do not when I have the biggest shield and the biggest sword. So let's actually fight the dragon guy at the end. Yeah, shield's OP, please nerf. Actually, no, don't nerf, I like big shield. Dragon Heart obtained, time to run through some memories. I am going to pick up all the Giant's kinships. This weakens Vendrick and doesn't take too long, and I might as well see if I can also take out Vendrick. And the last memory brings me face to face with the Giant Lord. His sword is considerably larger than mine, but it is still blockable, and that's all I need to know to make this fight quite easy. It's also pretty easy to just strafe around his feet while he tries and fails to meaningfully attack me. That's another boss down. Back to the catacombs to attack Vendrick, and yeah, that's still no damage. I could try this fight again, but I simply don't want to. So I'm not going to. Time to take the long run down to the Throne of Want. And first up is Watcher and Defender. They're quite aggressive, and not being able to roll effectively means I need to block every attack, which is fine in phase 1, but once they add elements to their swords in phase 2, it gets a little spicier. I do die on my first attempt as I'm trying to burn them both down at once, but that's actually stupid. Yeah, one will revive the other, but notably while they do that, they aren't attacking. And offense is actually my biggest strength. I absolutely destroy the Watcher, and the Defender is nearly dead before he even starts to try to revive her. It does not work. And then it's just Nashandra. Slap some Golden Pine Resin on my weapon I picked up earlier to get some lightning damage. Nashandra's physical attacks actually deal pretty decent damage, but she refuses to press any advantage, and instead switches between attacks and spells. Her spells could be dangerous, but they also leave her incredibly vulnerable to getting hit by my big sword. And that's all the opening I need to very quickly eat through her HP bar. And that is Dark Souls 2, completed while always being in heavy equip load. That run was a lot of fun. Certainly more fun than Demon Souls. It seems like the changes to poise and buffs to shields made them actually be very viable playstyles. And while the early game was a bit rough, it definitely got easier as I unlocked later options. But I will have more to say about that in the summary video, out in a few weeks. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos, so if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone and will remain that way. For now, if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.